Navigating VAT regulations is critical when you want to sell your Amazon products in European marketplaces. In this video, you will learn about 5 frequent problems Amazon sellers are facing when dealing with VAT in Europe. Things like VAT registration, reporting, the importance of keeping correct documents for potential audit. And we hope this video will help you to stay compliant with VAT. If you need any help with that, check SimplyVAT's website below in this video description and mention OrangeClick when you contact them to get a small discount.
Hello, Alex. I'm excited to have you here today with me to talk about everything VAT related, and more specifically, you will cover 5 most common problems Amazon sellers have with VAT. Before we do that, could you first introduce yourself and also let us know what is Simply VAT and how do you help Amazon sellers?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much. So my name is Alex Wyatt. I am from simplyvat.com. We help Amazon and e-commerce sellers trade internationally compliantly by helping with their local VAT registrations, their ongoing VAT compliance, any audits that people might have with tax authorities, or consultancy questions as well. If you have a really niche question that you want answered, we can help assist with that as well.
Very good. And because, we know that you talk with a lot of sellers and offer consultation to kind of help them to overcome different challenges, then we kind of discussed it would be nice to make a video about like 5 most common problems, because oftentimes probably the problems are quite repetitive for you because you are in this world every day. So I know you prepared some slides for us as well to go them through. So let's go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. And yeah, when kind of doing some research for this presentation, I went across our team and I did ask, what are the common things that they're seeing, whether it's from, new businesses reaching out to us or from existing clients. What are they seeing even once they are VAT registered? And I compiled 5 key areas that I wanted to talk through today. So what are we going to be covering? So first off is selling without a registration in place. This happens quite a lot, so I thought we'd cover off what we need to do here. Secondly is knowing who is responsible for VAT remittance. Third is where to register and what are the different types of reports to look out for. Fourth is understanding consignment values. What are consignment values? How do you calculate them? And fifth is understanding import documents that are frequently known as SADs. So let's get into it. First off is starting off with selling without a VAT registration in place. So now, for the most part, Amazon will not let you start selling without a VAT registration logged in your Seller Central account. So typically, you will need a VAT registration in advance of selling on Amazon. But if in the case you sell on your own website or you have managed to sell before getting VAT registered, you must backdate your VAT registration to account for VAT on the sales that have already happened, even when you weren't registered. Now, this is because the tax authorities do audit sellers and online retailers. They have jurisdiction to look back up to 10 years worth of sales. And marketplaces and other platforms have a requirement now to share transactional data with the tax authorities in the UK and the EU. So there really is no hiding. It's important to make sure that you keep all documents during your time selling into the UK and EU. So this includes documents for reclaims, sales or transactional data, and even VAT payments made to the tax authorities, saving those payment slips that you once you make a payment. So what happens if you don't register? Well, Amazon won't let you sell, or they may just suspend your account until you are registered. So recently, I've seen a case that a seller's company address and their VAT ID didn't align, and Amazon actually would not let them trade until this was fixed. They suspended the account and held all of their stock in one spot. So also the tax authorities can audit you, as I've mentioned, if there were any late submissions or penalties that need to be made, or sorry, late submissions or payments that need to be made, they can give you a fine or a penalty for any late declarations. This is typically calculated on a percentage of the VAT that's outstanding, but they can also just come up with their own penalties and fees. So how can you avoid this common mistake? Well, it's important to note that registrations can take anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks to process, depending on the country where you are looking to register. It's important to start early to avoid disappointment when your stock is stuck and you can't start selling until the registration is in place. So start early, start before you ship your goods, because you don't want your stock being held in a country where you're paying for maybe the goods to be stored and you can't actually ship the products until that registration is in place. Moving on to issue number 2. Who is responsible for the VAT payment to the tax authorities? So I've created a really simplified flowchart to help visualize who's responsible for VAT payments. Please note that this diagram does not apply to B2B sales, nor for businesses established in the EU. So if either of those apply to your business, please consult a local tax agent for specifics in these 2 cases. If you are based outside of the EU, so this includes the UK now that the UK has left the EU, you will need to understand where the goods are being dispatched from and the consignment value. If the goods are within the EU, then the marketplace is liable for the VAT. If the goods are sold from outside the EU, we then need to understand what the consignment value is. And that could be 150 euros going into the EU, or if you're shipping directly to customers in the UK, it's 135 pounds. So all of these will determine who is responsible for the VAT payments to the tax authorities. And please remember that the payments are separate to the collection. We do have a separate video on the collection right here on the Orange Click channel, so feel free to look back to that. Now, please note that your business's registration requirements are different to the payment requirements. So even if you're not paying the taxes directly to the tax authorities, you will still have a VAT registration obligation. So this brings us to topic number 3, where to register. You must register in each member state where you are fulfilling your goods from. So this allows you to reclaim your import VAT, make sales to marketplaces, make sales on your own website domestically, and also make B2B sales as well. Then we have the Union One-Stop Shop. So this covers cross-border inter-community B2C transactions. So if you are established outside of the EU, then you must register in only one country where your goods are being dispatched from. You only require this registration if you're selling on your own website. And if you're making sales only from a marketplace, you do not need this registration at all. If you are established within the EU, then you must register for the Union OS in your home country. So this is going to, this report is going to help declare any transactions that are crossing borders to private customers. So maybe if you're selling from a fulfillment center in Germany and you're selling to a customer in France, Italy, and Spain, and all of these transactions would go on the Union OS return. The Union OS return will not cover any domestic transactions or B2B sales or VAT reclaims. These all happen on the local VAT registration that we've just mentioned. Some other common reports that you might hear when you start getting VAT registered and filing ongoing compliance are EC sales list, which document the movement of taxable supplies between EU member states. So they get filed when you have any cross-border B2B sales or stock transfers. So for example, if you're using Amazon's Pan-EU program and you've imported your goods into one EU member state, and then Amazon is moving your goods all to the different fulfillment centers across the EU. You're going to have to file an EC sales list to document these stock transfers to essentially let the tax authorities know that you're no longer going to be paying the VAT in the country where you imported into, but now it's going to be recorded in a different country. Next, we have intrastat declarations. So these are statistical declarations for arrivals and dispatches of goods into a country. So these are only required once you hit specific thresholds, and these thresholds are quite high, so you do need to be moving quite a lot of goods in and out of an EU member state before having to register for these. But once you've hit the registration, you do need to file them on a monthly basis. And lastly is the IOS return. So this stands for Import One-Stop Shop. It's for sales on your own website or on marketplaces when the goods are being fulfilled outside of the EU to customers inside the EU with a consignment value less than 150 euros. These would go on the import one-stop shop return, which essentially means that you're going to charge the local rate of VAT where the end customer is located, but all of these transactions will go onto one IOS report that declare all of the VAT across the EU for these consignments less than 150 euros. And essentially allow your customs or allow your consignment through customs quite quickly without any duties on them as it's below the duty threshold. So you'll hear these reports quite often once you get registered within the EU and you start speaking to a tax agent about different filings and obligations. So next, we're going to cover off consignment values. So what is a consignment value? So it is used for determining whether or not an item is to be put maybe on the IOS scheme, or it's used for any shipments coming from outside the EU to inside the EU. For specifically the IOS scheme, we use the intrinsic value of the goods to calculate this. And this intrinsic value allows us to calculate whether or not it's below the 150 euros or above the 150 euro threshold, which would essentially say this can go on the IOS or it has to go through a different reporting scheme. So what is the intrinsic value? It is the price of the goods when sold, excluding transport and insurance and taxes and duties. Now, I've put a little asterisk in there because really, if you are including shipping in the fees or the prices of the product to customers, then this should be considered within the intrinsic value. So maybe you have offered free shipping on the goods and you're not charging that extra, then this is going to be included in the intrinsic value. Essentially, if you've listed it as a separate line item on the invoice, that's where it's considered exclusive of that intrinsic value. So it's important to make sure you keep that in mind so that you can make sure you're putting all of your products either into the IOS or above the IOS scheme. And I've just put a little calculation here. So if the product is listed for $125.99, excluding shipping, so shipping is added on top here, and a customer in France is has a 20% VAT rate, the total price is 151. Okay, so you've listed this 151 to the customers. This can still go on the IOS scheme because the VAT is exclusive of the intrinsic value. So the VAT will be left out, even though that the total value is listed at just above the 150 euro threshold. So keep that in mind that this consignment would be able to go through. Finally, we're going to look at SAD documents. So these are import documents used when shipping into the EU. I've taken a little screenshot here. So this is this is the top part of an SAD document here that you would see for all of your consignments that are going into the EU. So the SAD stands for Single Administrative Document, and it goes along each and every import into the EU. We're going to use it for import VAT reclaim. So if you pay import VAT and you want to reclaim that because you're VAT registered, you're going to need this declaration in order for us to help reclaim the import VAT from the tax authorities on your behalf. In order to make sure that you can reclaim the import VAT, you're going to have to use your EORI number in box 8. So the EORI number, I call it EORI, the EORI number identifies you as the importer of record. So it's essentially saying that you are the one paying the import duties and taxes. Typically, we use the Incoterms DDP, so delivered duty paid, when we're talking about acting as the importer of record. When you are shipping goods in as the importer of record, you are going to put your EORI number in box 8. Similarly, if you're importing with your IOS, you're going to put that number in there as well to show that that is the importer of record and you're using that to declare. There are going to be different documents for UK, for shipping into the UK and reclaiming from the UK than the EU. They also have different schemes available for postponed VAT accounting, which essentially allows you to not have to pay any VAT when you're importing in, but you just offset it on your VAT return. So there's different schemes available, but it all depends on the specific country. Also, if you're going to be importing into the EU and the UK, you're going to need separate EORI numbers. So you'll need a GB EORI number for the UK and an EU EORI number to import into the EU. If you're importing into Northern Ireland, you're going to need a separate one for that as well. That's going to be an XI EORI, but that's for a different day. If you have to talk about importing into Northern Ireland, then reach out to a tax advisor as it gets a lot more complex. And as I mentioned, you're going to want to hold on to these documents. You want to hold on to them for at least a period of 10 years in case of audit, but like I mentioned, you want to hold on to these documents so that you can reclaim the import VAT on your VAT return. You can only reclaim the import VAT once you're VAT registered. So just make sure that you have that you've kept these documents and that you are VAT registered. And maybe looping this right back to our first initial point is that if you're not registered but you've already imported goods, you may be able to still reclaim these. You have to backdate your VAT number and then also try to see if we can get these import documents with your company specific information so that potentially you could still reclaim even if you haven't been VAT registered right from the get-go of importing the goods. So those are the top 5 points that I wanted to cover off today. I hope that this has helped at least prepare you for importing or for getting registered in the right country, or even just using the right terminology and knowing what reports to use. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out and I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Alex, for highlighting those 5 problems. Probably there are even more like typical and common problems Amazon sellers have. But I wanted to ask, so we know that in 2021, I think it was when we had the update to the VAT schemes. Have there been any other important updates after that sellers should be aware of, like in terms of how they deal with VAT?
So yeah, July 2021 and Brexit, just 2021 in general, was a huge year for VAT and changes that happened. At the moment, there haven't been any massive changes that have come into effect since then. I think the dust is still settling in terms of making sure people are using the Union OS correctly and the IOS correctly. And the tax authorities are still catching up as well. But that's not to say the changes are done, because there are changes coming up over the next few years. So the European Commission has been planning for what's called VITA, which is VAT in the digital age, and they are really trying to yeah, make VAT collection more modern, because obviously it has been outdated. You know, they were set 50 years ago before, you know, e-commerce was even a thing. And then now they're slowly starting to modernize VAT and VAT collection. So you will start to see more changes coming up over the next few years, like electronic invoicing, potentially even single VAT registrations, maybe increased thresholds for iOS. We're going to see a whole bunch, but we will see these in years to come. So they haven't finalized any times for these. So if you are interested in VAT, you can always sign up or look on our blog, because we'll have regular information on that updated.
Okay, so yeah, this means we have to keep you and Simply VAT close to our site. So whenever something is gonna introduce to the sellers or e-commerce overall, then we can record another video about that.
Absolutely.
So before we go, could you once more highlight like what are the main ways you help Amazon sellers or e-commerce sellers in general with VAT? So if anyone is listening and they're hearing they're kind of needing help, then they know they could reach out to you.
Yeah, of course. So first off, when any sellers get in touch with us, we want to listen to what your expansion plans are. We'll then decipher where you need to get VAT registered, depending on your supply chains and which fulfillment centers you're using, etc. So we'll help with the VAT registrations from there. And then once you're registered, we can do the ongoing compliance. So that's the regular VAT filings, the EC sales list, etc. that we were talking about. And then on top of that, if there's any audits that occur from the tax authorities, if you have any specific consultancy questions, we can assist with this. And we have a wealth of partners that we can refer you to if you do have, you know, any issues importing or with customs, etc. We can assist with that as well.
Okay, sounds good and useful for the Amazon sellers listening to us. So thanks again, Alex. And if you're watching our video and you do have any questions for Alex, you can leave them down to the comments and we're going to invite Alex back to this video and answer those questions as well. So I hope to see you soon again.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, everyone.
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you need help with VAT, make sure you contact SimplyVAT, mention OrangeClick and this video so they know you came from here. And if you have additional follow-up questions, don't forget to leave them in comment section below. And now I would like to invite you to watch other video with Alex, where she talks, gives some tips on how to price the products in European and UK market, which are including VAT inside the price. So check these tips as well.